Okay, we're ready.
All right, thanks, Henish. Really appreciate you being willing to share this resource with the Opportunity Knocks audience and help us all out. So I'll let you kick it off.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share the spreadsheet. I've been fixing it and putting it together over the years. It's not perfect. There are some errors on it. So if any tech geniuses out there can help me tweak this so all of the cells work perfectly, that'd be great. I had it working at one point, but I think I broke a function. So here's where it is. So there's a lot of variables to figuring out how much you can make uh, when flipping houses. And so I've used this for over 100 deals, and it helps me drill down the numbers so I know a better idea of how much my carrying costs are going to be, how much I'll net, and what various aspects of the project are going to cost, right? So, first off, the date is important, right? The date that you buy the property and the date that you are planning to sell it. So let's just put in today's date and kind of mark the video with that it's the 7th of November. And typically a flip deal takes me about 4 months total. So let's put this until February 7th, 2023. So that gives us, that's 3 months. So I'm going to do one more month after that. About 120 days, right? 120 days on property is about 4 months, right, Cam?
Yes.
Okay, so we're doing $600,000 purchase price. We think it's worth 850. I've got a whole separate video on how to determine value. We're not doing that at this one, right? Next thing you need to discuss is how much of the money you're going to get from your hard money lender, your bank, and or how much you're going to get from your investor if you're going to get an investor to help you with the equity portion, right? Because the bank might give you 70, 80, 90% of the purchase price. And so you still have to put the down payment. And in some cases, they'll even give you 90 to 100% of the rehab dollar amount of your construction budget. Does that make sense? So you can plug
Yes.
that all in here, right? So hard money's gotten more expensive because we're in the middle of this rate adjustment. So I mean, you've got to expect that you're going to spend 2 points on rate. LTV's gone down. I was paying 0.5 in points, and I could get up to 90% LTV on my purchase and 100% on my refi. But that's because I've had experience, and when the market was good, they just gave me better terms, right? I wouldn't expect that the rate's going to be about 80% LTV there. Let's say the rate is 10% right now because that's roughly what it is. Um, this LTV, let's bump that to 80% as well. And you can kind of see that of the $600,000 loan, 80% is 480. And say they're going to do the rehab also, we have to figure out what that rehab amount is, right? So I got some purchase and sales prices on here, 600,000, 850. Let's say this is your standard 3-2, 1,200 square foot house that you can find anywhere in San Diego. In some places they sell for 850, and other places they'd sell for 650. So it just depends where it's at. And if this was in the coastal area, that same house would be 1.5 million. So just kind of generic numbers there. To fix a 1,200 square foot house, depending on what it needs, could cost about $100,000. It's another topic of discussion, but basically it's about $85 a foot to fix a house with most things being done: windows, roof, HVAC system, cabinets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So all the stuff that you want to fix. So we're into this thing. So now we know, how much down payment we've got, how much rehab we're getting from the bank as well, what their terms are going to be, and then also the investor liens and the total cash needed. You can see we need a fair amount of money, right? $120,000 down just to get started, plus the holding costs. Oh, I broke this cell a while ago. Yeah. That cell you're not supposed to touch because it gets blended right here.
Sorry, where's the okay.
Yeah, so this one you're not supposed to touch because it's the blended LTV of the rehab plus the purchase. This got kicked back because I just kind of reversed out of it. So I broke it on accident. This is how easy it is to break these things, but ideally you save the original version and then you can kind of tweak it from there. So you can see the blended LTV between the purchase and the rehab, 480 plus the $100,000 is 580. So 580 over 600 is 96.67%. They give this to you in draws. The bank will send out an inspector and say, okay, cool, you've got 25% of the job done. We're sending you $25,000, right? Does that make sense? So that's how that
Yes.
works.
So we're up to 164,000 cash needed.
164,000 in cash needed, 120 down plus all the holding costs, right? And say we got this from an agent, and typically that agent will say, well, I need to get the listing back. You got to pay me at least 2%. Well, you got to pay that agent 2% as well. say you've got good investors, they love you, they trust your projects, and they say that you do a good job, they're going to give you this money. So say you take the full 165 in cash needed from an investor, that you're going to pay 12%. That's a decent return for them. And so now that minimizes your cash need, right? It takes care of your down payment and your holding costs during this time. Okay. So down payment, it says it's 20,000. That's not accurate because it's actually 120,000. This is just factoring in that I'm getting a rehab loan on there as well. The loan amount is total 580, right? The 480 plus the 100. Purchase closing costs, we just got it as 2%. This actually has it at 1.5% times 1.9. That's the points, but this is the extra fees that you're going to be paying for title, for escrow, for transfer taxes, et cetera, whatever else junk fees that you're paying to close can add up to 1.5% pretty quickly, right? Make sense?
Yes.
Hard money points are factored in as well. That's the 2% at that 580 loan amount because it's the combined loan amount, and that's 12,600. Okay. Property insurance, got to factor that in, right? You're gonna have to pay taxes on this thing. Property insurance, got to pay taxes on it. Hard money loan payments, and this is for 120 days. This is your per month cost, right? So $580,000 at 9% divided by 12 months is $4,350 a month. And different investors do different types of interest calculations depending on whether they're counting the construction loan as Dutch or New York interest. You familiar with the difference?
No.
Okay, Dutch is like when you go Dutch on a date and you pay separately, right?
Okay.
So that means they only charge for the loan amounts that you've got. So if you've got construction draw and you haven't used it, they're not charging you for that money that you haven't used yet. So your loan amount and your dollar amount changes every month, right? So if you take a construction loan amount and draw and you don't ever use it and you flip the property, well, you don't have to pay them back that money. You never paid interest on it. New York interest means they're charging the interest the entire time. So you'd be paying your 9% on 580 from the day one. Okay. So important term to look into when you're trying to get a hard money loan of when they're charging, because that can make a big difference.
Definitely.
Okay.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Hard money loan payments, utilities and HOA. Well, guess what? When you're fixing a house, you're using a lot more electricity and water on the property than you would if you're just living there, right? Because these guys are cranking through the hose and using power tools and stuff like that. So they're using a lot of electricity and power. So you got to factor that in. And you can adjust these dollar amounts so that you can more accurately reflect your property, right? These are put in as different functions based on different, just, what is it called? Just kind of, from my experience of what these things usually cost, I just kind of plug those in. Those are kind of plug numbers. Yeah. There's another word for it. I'll think of it eventually. So rehab costs, I plugged it in 100,000. If you watch too much HGTV, you think you can fix a house for 30,000 bucks. You can't. You could fix a kitchen for $30,000, but you can't fix a whole house for that much. Staging, it's nice to put the furniture and the stuff in there, and so you've got to pay someone for that, right? And that's $2,500 or more. The commissions that you're paying, right? When you sell the house, that comes out of your proceeds as the seller. The sale closing costs, put in another 1.5% for escrow, title, notaries, recording fees, et cetera, et cetera. And so now you can see on this project that you bought for 600, that you're going to pay $100,000 to fix, can sell for 850, and you did it in 4 months, you will net $46,000. Make sense? It seems like you have a fat spread. The unsavvy flipper would say, "Oh, 600 plus 100, sell for 850. I'm going to make $150,000 on this thing." Right. But it's vastly different, right? So that's why you can't just think of your gross spread, your total number, because someone's got to pay these numbers, right? Which is all your holding costs. Someone's got to pay your commissions. And you can see right here, kind of in the bottom corner, those holding costs just for those 3 months are almost 30,000 bucks. And when you sell the house, that's another 50,000 bucks. There goes 80,000 right there. Right?
Yeah.
It's cost of doing business. And ideally, I had these set up so it would show you, maybe it's working, how much it would be in 4 months, which is exactly matches this one. If it takes an extra 2 months, how much more you'd be losing, right? Another $6,000 less. If it took 8 months, something seems wrong there because it doesn't seem linear. So I think something's wrong with this cell over here that could be
Well,
fixed.
on the 4-month projection, since that's what you typically see, how come the total cash needed is still 170,000? Does that include what you get from your investor?
It's saying that no, it does not. It doesn't include this amount.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see that amount changed when, because it does factor in the interest that I would have to pay the investor. So if I took no money from an investor, $1,000, there's no interest there. But when I added the 165 for 4 months, you can see that added about $5,000 worth of interest.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So that's 600 minus 480 minus 165. Or I'm sorry. I'm trying to, so total cash needed is what you need to come out, or that's what you need for all the expenses and everything to do the project.
Correct. The down
Okay.
payment
Okay.
plus all the holding costs just for 4 months.
Okay.
Right. But then you can,
Awesome.
if you highlight these cells, you can see what your holding cost is per month. It's almost $7,300, $7,400 a month
Yeah.
to hold this thing. So you could drop it by that much after 2 months. $7,400 in 2 months is 15,000.
Mhm.
You do 5 months. You could do that math and see how much you're losing each month that it drags on if it's not selling. Right.
Mhm.
Makes sense. And then over here I've got additional splits. If you wanted to do a preferred return, or if you're doing co-investing with your investors, and what that could look like as well, for different calculations on prefs and splits like that.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I got that all in there. So if someone's like, well, let's do a 90-10 deal, especially if you're a new investor, and say, okay, cool, I'll put in 10%, the investor puts in 90, and then you figure out how you're going to split that. Maybe they get a preferred return of 15% or 12%, and then they do a 50-50 profit split or something like that with you because they want to be more active on your flip. Ideally, you get a more passive investor that says, yep, 12%, no problem. We're good with that. Just pay me and get the project done.
This is awesome. And a lot of these costs are pretty benchmarked, and but you use this spreadsheet, and so to find out if there is profit, you need to look at the 2 main factors here are the initial purchase price and the sale price.
Yeah, and the other thing is how much you're going to spend on the rehab.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Budgeting that right, you can spend more.
Mm-hmm.
It's with my team, they always like, well, how much do you want to spend? And I'm like, well, I know the cheapest we could do this thing is 100, but I want it nicer and I can get a little bit extra budget. Let's get 120. I need to have some sizzle features on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put in the nicer appliances, make it prettier on the outside, to get some more eyes on it, because I think we can break the comps. Maybe I can sell it for more, especially when the market was hot, right? So it'd be worth it for me to spend a little extra, because I know I'd get, if I could spend an extra 20, maybe I can get an extra 50 on the house.
Right. So where it's located, what that purchase price is the driver. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Henish. I don't know if you want to cover anything else, but really appreciate this resource for our audience, and you being willing to speak with anybody who has any more questions on this.
Sure, my pleasure. I'll stop the recording and we'll wrap that up. Thank you so much.
Cool.